Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into a hugely important historical document, Prophet Muhammad's farewell sermon. Our goal here is to unpack what it says about rights and responsibilities, especially, within marriage. We're focusing on one specific source, a hadith from the collection Sahih Muslim, and there are definitely some nuances here, particularly around certain phrases. Stick with us because the context is, well, pretty crucial. So, this sermon, or at least this hadith, starts with a really direct point about women. Fear Allah concerning women. Verily, you have taken them as a trust from Allah, and intimacy with them has been made lawful to you by the word of Allah. What does that framing women as a trust tell us right off the bat?
Well, framing it that way as a sacred trust immediately sets a very high standard for how women should be treated. It puts immense responsibility on the husband. And that second part about intimacy being lawful by the word of Allah, it underscores that the marriage bond itself is, consecrated.
Consecrate, okay.
Yeah, it elevates it beyond just a social contract. It's a serious, divinely backed commitment demanding respect.
That idea of a sacred trust really does set a profound tone. Then the sermon gets into some specifics, doesn't it? Starting with a right for the husband. You have the right that they should not allow anyone to sit on your beds whom you dislike.
Hmm.
How does that specific point fit into the bigger picture of marital sanctity?
Right. So that point is about essentially safeguarding the privacy and, well, the sanctity of the home, the marital space. It's about the husband's comfort and honor within that private sphere. But then right after that comes the phrase that has caused, frankly, a lot of discussion. But if they do that, you can beat them without causing injury. And this is where, careful interpretation is absolutely vital.
Yeah, that phrase, beat them without causing injury, certainly led to a lot of debate and maybe some significant misunderstanding over the years. What's the scholarly take on that today?
This is really critical for how we understand it now. The overwhelming consensus among contemporary Islamic scholars is that any beating mentioned here cannot be violent. It's interpreted as symbolic, absolutely non-injurious, causing no physical or psychological harm.
Symbolic, okay.
Yes, and seen as an absolute last resort, a gesture related only to that specific issue of violating the sanctity of the home.
Uh,
Many scholars even argue it's best just avoided entirely. They point to the Prophet's own life. He never struck women.
right.
The whole thrust of Islamic teaching is always towards kindness, persuasion, reconciliation. That comes first and foremost. It's about expressing serious displeasure, not about inflicting pain.
That context is just so important, isn't it? Clarifying that nuance and the
God.
kind of the overarching principle of kindness. Now, the hadith doesn't stop there. It also clearly outlines rights for women, stating, and they have the right to their provision and their clothing according to what is reasonable. Or the term used is maruf. Okay, what does that word maruf really imply here?
So Maruf establishes these fundamental rights: sustenance, clothing, basic needs met appropriately. And the term itself, maruf, is key. It means what's reasonable, fair, customary according to the specific time and place. It's not a rigid, fixed thing.
So it adapts.
Exactly. It implies a standard of dignity and fairness that considers the circumstances. It ensures their well-being and respect are maintained. And this clearly shows, the mutual nature of obligations in the marriage. It's
Yeah.
not just one-sided.
Right, a two-way street. So, wrapping up our deep dive for today, we've looked at this section of the farewell sermon, and we've seen this strong articulation of mutual rights and responsibilities in marriage. It emphasizes women as a sacred trust, demanding respect and care. It details rights for both spouses. And crucially, the modern understanding, the scholarly view, stresses that any corrective measure must be, well, nonviolent, symbolic, with kindness always being the priority.
Absolutely. And this whole discussion really underscores something important, doesn't it? Understanding these complex historical texts. It often requires engaging with layers upon layers of scholarly thought and interpretation over time. It's a dynamic process, shaping how we grasp these foundational teachings. They aren't just static rules, they're part of a living tradition needing constant, thoughtful engagement. And maybe that leaves you thinking, how does this ongoing conversation around historical texts continue to refine, maybe even deepen, our understanding of their core messages in our world today?